You're treating me like the villain. Well, to them, they're not making $14 million a year. So I think Le'Veon Bell needs to take a step back and think, hey, listen, everything should be directed at the organization. Everything should be directed between he and his agent, have a discussion, play the good cop, bad cop, get the deal done somehow, some way. But when you start throwing out these tweets out there, the fans are going to take exception to this rule.
Aren't you all surprised about his self-awareness here? I thought Le'Veon has gone through that before. Get off your Twitter mentions. Like, everybody doesn't feel this way. He's probably reading some comments on Twitter, not feeling the love. We're talking about the public perception is never going to side with the guy griping about making millions. And you guys know this better than I do. I mean, I didn't make millions.
Well, maybe it's a tactic. I think Le'Veon is smarter than we think he is, because when he tweets out things like this, what it does is it creates the storylines that we talk about here on NFL Live, and it continues that conversation and awareness that, hey, I don't have a deal yet. I am a franchise-changing running back. I only have one shot at this. Let me stir up some things to make sure people understand I still need to be addressed.
People aren't going to understand. That's the problem. The people, and you said it earlier, I saw you on SportsCenter say it earlier, people in the city of Pittsburgh are not going to understand.
You're handing the leverage, by the way, to the team, because if all of a sudden the fan base turns, then Kevin Colbert, the GM, can say, hey, man, you're making the fans mad, too.
Trust me, I get it. I'm from Western Pennsylvania, so I understand that. But the good thing about this is the fans aren't the ones sending the contract to Le'Veon.
That's right.
My agent used to tell me when I was a player, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. This is Le'Veon squeaking his wheel so that it gets a little bit of attention. Business comes first.
What about the word hero? What do you make of that? Him calling himself a hero of the city?
I mean, he's a confident guy.
Hey, look.
Not all heroes wear capes, you know?
I'll say this. He's my favorite player to watch.
Yeah,
hands down. I mean, Le'Veon Bell is a superstar. Can do a little bit of everything. Versatile, run the ball between the tackles. He can do everything you want as a football player. As a hero, he's a hero to a lot of kids that are sitting here watching the game of football, because that's what he brings to the table. But in the city right now, he needs to take a step back and say, stay away from the fan base, go right back to business like you were saying.
Well, I think the business is a part of that. So as an NFL player, there's always two things you want. You want a big contract, and you want a Super Bowl ring. The big contract comes first. So I think what he's trying to say is, I can't be the hero that brings the championship here until we handle business first. And I think that's what he means by he wants to be a hero, but he has to be the villain first.
Sounds like a country song.
Like Killmonger from the Black Panther. That's what he is.
Is that what it is?
Do you think the Steelers are going to give in here? Is this going to work? Is this going to work?
Not this tweet.
The tweet won't work. I don't know how the entire process
This is I mean, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is a loaded question.
Well,
I think it works in the end.
Yeah?
I'll put myself out.
All right, put yourself out there. All right, Bell's set to make $14.56 million on the franchise tag in 2018.
Hero.
Deep in the heart of Texas, an oasis builds. In the open fields, under the highest pressure. Refining, rising, evolving.
I knew I had something special.
Developing, surfacing.
We're seeing one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
A star in the making.
Lamar Jackson is the best player in the country, hands down.
I just go out there thinking, man, we got to score. If the ball is in my hand, I'm going to try to get in the end zone any way possible.
The winner is Lamar Jackson of the University of Louisville.
Lamar Jackson, of course, the youngest Heisman Trophy winner.
This year is going to be a great year, not a good year. We had a good year last year. We're going to try to have a great year this year.
What a hurdle by Jackson! Highlight reel touchdown! You know it's coming and you still can't stop it.
Now, they're ready to be unearthed, unveiled under the bright lights of the big stage.
The Lamar show continues.
Michael Vick tweets that Jackson is 5 times better than what I was at VTech.
I'm a field journal. I take action, lead my team victory.
Well, it was pro day at Louisville yesterday, and can you guess who the main attraction was? Yeah, that guy, Lamar Jackson, the former Heisman Trophy winner. He didn't run the 40-yard dash. He didn't do any agility drills, and remember, he didn't run that 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine just about a month ago now. So he also hasn't hired an agent. He's been represented by his mom. He's a quarterback with Andre Ware.
You certainly looked agile and light on your feet, and the ball's jumping off your hand today. Tell me some things that you wanted to work on, or that you've worked on, that you wanted to come out and showcase today.
Well, prove, I can throw in the pass from under center. I guess, my center helped me out a lot. He came down from Florida, came down, helped me out to Bayou Hughley. I just felt I needed to show them guys I could throw each ball, That's
Good stuff. There have been some naysayers, obviously, and you've heard the critics and things of that sort. Do you think after a performance like this that you finally put those things to rest?
Well, no matter what you do in life, there's going to always be naysayers. No matter if you, prove them wrong, whatever, they're going to still have negative comments. But I just felt, I came out and showed them guys I can play from under center.
Good stuff. Is there a team or a scenario that fits the game of Lamar Jackson?
I feel I can compete with any team. They put me out there. Whoever hire me, I'm going to show them. Yes,
that's the good stuff, man. Enjoyed watching this, and I tell you what, I had goosebumps watching that ball come off here. Wish I could spin it like that back in the day. Good stuff, man. No doubt.
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy.
All right, well, Kuiper's mock draft 3.0 came out this week. Mel's got the Browns kicking off the draft with Wyoming quarterback Josh Allen. Sam Darnold will fall to the Giants at number 2, and the Jets would wind up with UCLA's Josh Rosen. Now, 4 of the first 5 picks are quarterbacks. Denver takes Baker Mayfield 5th overall. Mel also has Lamar Jackson to the Cardinals at 15. So, Jeff, I want to start with you here. Jackson's management of the draft process here, what are you hearing?
Well, it's interesting. So you mentioned it. There's an obvious underlying narrative here that he's not represented by an agent and that he's represented by his mother. And generally speaking, within the media world, that doesn't go over well because a lot of agents try to substantiate what they do. They're going to tell reporters that this isn't going to work for him, and ultimately that's going to get out to the public. In this situation, though, it does feel a little bit odd because teams are also increasingly concerned with the way that Jackson is handling this because they're having trouble actually getting in touch with him to actually schedule meetings. I reached out to a number of different teams yesterday and found 6 different teams who said they're having difficulty getting a call back from Jackson, to the point where not only is he just not returning calls, but they feel like he's actively dodging them. It's strange. I don't want to try to, I'll let you guys weigh in on the opinion side of it, because I don't want to necessarily criticize him, because maybe he's just got his own strategy here and he doesn't want to waste his time with teams he doesn't feel like are ultimately going to draft him.
That's what I mean. And like you said, if the teams are saying that's one point. But in the age of social media, in the age of cell phones and email, to think that you can't get in touch with somebody just seems far-fetched.
They're trying.
So maybe it is the fact that Lamar is like, hey, I'm not going to go through this process with this team. I don't want to play in that team. That's not the right system for me. Now, whether or not that's his call to make is a different story. But my concern is less that he doesn't have an agent and more that who is coaching him at quarterback. Because watching his pro day, I think he showed he can throw every pass. He has an incredible arm, but some of the technique stuff, some of the footwork stuff, like hitching up on a 3-step drop slant, which is what you cannot do in the league, it makes me question who is coaching him from the quarterback position and helping with his development and maturation in this process, because that's going to be one of the real question marks as he transitions to the league.
Yeah, and I think that's the big question mark right now. That's why, he's probably like, I'm not going to run a 40 because I'm fast, you know my athleticism, but he's got to show those type of things in this pro day. He's got to be a guy that can show you his footwork, his release, the mechanics of being a quarterback, a drop-back quarterback from the position. That's what he needs to show. But I agree with you. As far as the process is concerned, I think if that's out there that he's not meeting or willing to meet with some of these coaches and these teams as far as an interview process, that's huge. I mean, because teams at that position, teams want to see you face to face, and they want to ask you certain questions that you're going to have to answer these questions because you play a position which is mentally is going to be a challenging position. So I think it's huge that he's not willing to go out there and have these interviews.
You're also neglecting a possibility here. And if we think back to someone like Tim Tebow, and I know people might roll their eyes at the whole Tim Tebow notion, but a guy like Lamar Jackson or Tim Tebow was trying to improve their stock to the point where they're not thought of as being a top 10 pick. So they just got to keep creeping up there. Tim Tebow met with Josh McDaniels, and the rest was history, so they said. There was magic in the room. They fell in love with each other. And ultimately, Josh McDaniels helped reach up for him to get him at the Denver Broncos. It didn't work out, so it's not the best example. But my point is, in these pre-draft meetings, magic can be made to the point where a team that didn't expect to draft him ultimately does. And I think that there is a level of importance on some of these meetings that maybe Lamar Jackson right now might be overlooking. But again, it's a personal preference, and ultimately, it's about what he does.
And
when
your job is to get drafted.
That's right.
However, whatever it takes, get drafted.
And then figure it out.
Get drafted at what position, though? I mean, you mentioned some of his technique looked off a little bit during his pro day. He's trying to prove that he can be a quarterback. How can he sort of change the minds here that he's the guy, that he's ready to do this?
I don't think he has to change the mind. I think his college tape has shown everyone, I'm a quarterback. That's not a conversation you can have maybe until, let's say he gets drafted and 4 years down the line it doesn't work out and he's a backup and he has to make the determination, do I want to be a backup making $7 million a year, or do I want to be a $13 million a year receiver, kind of like the Terrell Pryor situation? But as it stands right now, he said he's a quarterback. He has played quarterback his whole life and no other positions. Yes, he is athletic, but that is not a detriment. That is an asset in professional sports. I wouldn't run the 40 either because, spoiler alert, he's really, really fast.
The question is, hey, can you play under center? That's the question. And listen, this kid's been playing one position all his life, and that's the quarterback position. I don't see why we should be having a conversation about him playing wide receiver or defensive back or whatnot. He's won the Heisman Trophy playing that position, which is a quarterback position. That's where he's going to – I firmly believe that's where he's going to play in the NFL for his entire career. He's going to be a quarterback.
And to play devil's advocate of what I was saying before, ultimately he just has to get in a building. Maybe he loses out on a little bit of money because his draft stock falls around or something like that. But look, the money's made in your second contract anyway. Get to the right place, get in there, show them you can play quarterback, and you'll make a long living in this league. So ultimately, these several months, they're important. Yes, they are, but he'll have his time to prove it.
That's right.
Yeah, a little life lesson, too. Call people back. Let them know. Don't leave people hanging. This applies to football and everything else.
Say something? Are you saying something?
I texted Darren yesterday. He didn't text me back, so that was a shot. All right, so to come on NFL Live. The draft's best story. Shaquem Griffin had his pro day yesterday. Coming up, we'll talk his draft stock. Also, Malcolm Butler opens up about his experiences in New England. Find out what he said. And is Johnny Manziel making the right steps to make it back to the NFL? We'll dive right into it. We'll be right back.
The key right now is just be consistent. I feel like I've genuinely got a right team around me and the right people around me and a wife that cares about me and loves me enough.
Can we finish what we started? Do we have it in us?